Now, a new study on substance abuse among young people in Ireland has identified an increasing prevalence in the use of cocaine in 15 to 24-year-olds. The report compiled by the Health Research Board found that cannabis remains the most commonly used drug in Ireland, but the use of other stimulants has increased, with ecstasy and cocaine use here the second highest in Europe. The report also found that adolescents start to drink alcohol at a later stage, but problem drinking remains a major issue in the country. Well, joining me to discuss this now is recovering addict Conor Harris, Fine Gael's Barry Ward, Sinn Féin's Rose Conway-Walsh and HR expert Caroline Reidy. And via Skype this evening, the head of addiction services at St John of God's Hospital, Professor Colin O'Gara. You're all very welcome to the programme and thank you for coming in to us, Conor, to share your story. You're 22 now, but you were 17 when you first tried cocaine. Why did you try it?
Yeah, so just briefly, I just tried it out of pure curiosity. You know, I was out one night at a graduation and it was offered to me and I just said I'd give it a go. And when I did give it a go, I had this feeling that I'd never felt before, and I thought it was all good at the start. I thought it was what I wanted and stuff like that, but what it made me feel like that was a relationship, like a sense of love that I never felt before, and little did I know what it was actually going to do to me. So I took it at 17. That was at the end of 5th year. 6th year I went through school only using on a weekend. It was only a Friday night. Then it turned to a Friday, Saturday night. Then I was sneaking out of my house on a Wednesday to go to college parties in the local college to me. And the end of 6th year I was using through my leaving cert. And I didn't really think I had a problem. I knew nothing about addiction or anything like that. I had no real understanding of what I was doing. I just thought I was having fun, you know.
And you're a confident, outgoing person.
Yeah, I was, and that's the thing people always said about me. They'd always ask how I was so, you know, confident and hyper when I came into school and all, but, you know, I used cocaine a lot to suppress emotions and things, the things that I dealt with in the past, because I always struggled with my mind, and this was a great form of escape for me. It was a short-term solution for a long-term problem that I'd been suffering with all along. And, you know, I went on to Croatia for a holiday after school, and it was when I crossed this imaginary line, I believe, in my addiction. I used every day over there for 10 days. I went through over €3,000. I had to get my family to send me over money for drugs, which they didn't know about. They thought I was struggling with money because of taxis and stuff like that. And I came back and I was meant to start my apprenticeship, and drugs had another choice for me. I ended up losing that apprenticeship, and I ended up getting into a lot of debt. I ended up going from using what was on weekends before, going to Croatia, using every day of the week, to now just relying on drugs. So what would have been maybe 1 gram on the weekends was turned into 5, 6, 7 grams a day. And that year, in October before Halloween, I ended up in hospital after nearly losing my life, and I ended up in €20,000 worth of debt. And
how was it making you feel in yourself?
So at the time when I first started, it was like everything. It made me feel good, it made me feel great, but the drugs stopped working very, very quickly. You know, it stopped making me feel better, it stopped turning down the voice in my head, but it got a hold of me. Like, the cocaine really, really got a hold of me, and I was in the grips of this progressive illness that I did not know how to break away from. But I always used to think, as I was so strong when I was growing up to get through things in my life, why couldn't I get over this? And I remember sitting in the hospital bed with Ma and my sister at the end of the hospital bed crying when I got rushed into hospital. And I remember saying, I'm never going to do this again. That's it, I'm done. And a week later, and it was Halloween, and I was back out using. And I said, where did I get, or how did I get here, and why did this happen? And, you know, I went on another spree after that for a couple of months, and then it was, you know, Mother's Day 2019 when the lights really switched for me. You know, I had been suicidal and stuff in the past when I was younger, even before I started using drugs, because I just, as a kid, suffered with my head, and that was the way it was, and I didn't want to show that to other people. And, you know, it was Mother's Day 2019, and I'd been out for 3 days straight, and I just had enough. You know, I'd been writing suicide letters and all before. I'd countless of times tried to take my life, and this time I really went to go through with it. And I walked back and forth to the water, taking off a piece of clothing, and in that moment, I tried to take my own life. I didn't fear death anymore. I feared living, because what went to partying and having fun turned into me sitting in my bedroom 7 days a week, you know, sniffing cocaine, going toilet in a bottle, pouring it out the window with no life to live anymore. And I was playing inter-county football with Kildare and all when I was younger, and I said, how did I get here? And, you know, by the grace of a loving higher power today, I ended up getting saved by a friend who came back for me when he never should have. And I remember when he grabbed me that day, he said, what would you do if I never came back for this bottle of water? And I couldn't answer him. I just cried and cried and cried. And you know, fortunately enough, I knew that day I needed to change. You know, I knew that was enough for me. And
when you were using, Conor, particularly in the early days, were you able to keep that hidden from, you know, family, from school, teachers, your principal, employers?
yeah, so I could, and even my mum and me discuss this sometimes. She always, and it's no fault of her own, she always says, how did I not know? Because I kept it such a secret. I kept it so hidden. And it can be so scary how hidden we can keep it from our families with addiction, not just drug addiction, gambling and anything like that. I kept it so secret, only for what happened to me in the year before Halloween 2018. If that had never happened, my mother wouldn't have known, because it was when I was lying down that day I had to tell her.
Were you surprised when you saw today's report that it's become so prevalent in this country, particularly among people who are so young?
No, I'm not surprised, because it's everywhere. It's everywhere I go. You know, I'm sober now, so I'm very aware of my surroundings and I know what's going on. And in my personal experience and what I've seen and all the signs and all the telltales of how people are doing it, I see it day in, day out. And when I seen this report, it was like, it doesn't shock me. It's just, it's what's going on today. And there obviously has to be something done about it, because as a country, for people between 17 and 24 to have that type of increase, we have to be failing somewhere. No pointing the fingers at anyone to blame or something, but it doesn't surprise me. I go out to nightclubs, I go to festivals, I see this day in and day out.
Professor O'Gara, many of us, I think, were shocked today when we saw, you know, 170% increase in the number of young people seeking help, seeking treatment for cocaine use. But I'm sure for you, working in the front line, it didn't shock you.
No, it didn't at all, Ciara. It is a significant problem at the moment with regards to presentations, and just listening to Conor's story, I mean, it's what comes through is the utter misery that goes with cocaine. And, you know, it is a drug that just brings so much grief to the individual and people around the individual. The other point that I would make is just it goes hand in hand with alcohol. And in Ireland, we have a significant problem with alcohol. And what we see is that people use cocaine after drinking several, you know, say 8 or 9 pints. People will use cocaine to continue drinking. And that's a really dangerous situation we have in Ireland, because we already have a significant drink problem. Over the last, you know, certainly since 2016, in my mind, as the economy improved, we've seen this increase in cocaine, and just that toxic combination in, you know, pubs, nightclubs. But as you progress with the illness, it's really, you know, a lot of the viewers this evening wouldn't probably understand this. It's a miserable addiction where people will use 24/7 at home alone or in a job. So once cocaine takes hold, it's you know, as Conor's referring to there, you can be quite functional right till the end, but using several grams a day. Conor mentioned 6 or 7 grams a day, and that's the type of presentation that we would see at the severe end. People that you know appear to be normal but are taking huge amounts of cocaine.
Any understanding, Professor, why we are the second highest amongst young people for using in Europe?
I would see it as two facets to that, Ciara. The first would be availability. Certainly our patients tell us that the availability of cocaine is significant. So, you know, if a drug is readily available, you see a significant amount of end harm. So if you want to reduce the end harm, you have to reduce the availability. The second piece, I would say, is in relation to genetics. And there is definitely a genetic piece with regards to young people. If you look at us, genetics and behaviour, you know, if you look at the way people drink on the continent versus in Ireland, you know, I think, you know, as Irish people, we drink more and heavier, and the binges are heavier, and there's a cultural acceptance that, you know, drinking a lot is the norm. So, I think that has translated to cocaine, and unfortunately, you know, there's groups, young people in groups now tell us that they feel that they're the odd ones out if they're not using cocaine in a group, which is kind of terrifying for parents and terrifying for loved ones, because You know, if there's that amount of, of pressure on young people to use drugs, we really do need to look at it and to see what we can do about that, you know.
Caroline Reidy, is it prevalent in the workplace? Do you think are employers having to deal with people who are either, using at work or coming into work and still dealing with the after effects of perhaps having, had a heavy weekend?
Without doubt. I think the work environment, we have a lot of employee assistance programs and people use work for a call for help. Conor, I think, really put it well there where he said it comes to the end of the line that you're hoping you will get the opportunity to draw a line in the sand. And we see at work, often it's the work night out and people realise the wheels have come off really badly for somebody. And it's that opportunity to give them help. And I think that was a positive in the survey, the amount of people that are actually looking and getting help, which is the hope. But I think raising awareness, the workplace has a really good role in raising awareness as well in relation to alcohol and drugs.
But hasn't the workplace really changed because so many people are now working from home? I'm wondering, does it facilitate this addiction a bit more?
There's definitely a worry from that perspective that it's more hidden, but I think we're still seeing the after effects the morning after, the night before, where people are not able to function and they're not able to come in. And again, we're back now to seeing a lot more of the work get-togethers, etc. So I think this is definitely something that we need to address. We need to raise awareness, both from a work perspective and general society perspective.